Hello and welcome to Craft with Sarah. It's a bit of a sad day because this is the final video in my year-long series that's been running throughout 2025 of themed flower pot designs to cut with a Cricut, Silhouette, ScanNCut or other type of cutting machine. However, all good things must come to an end, and today's flower pot is the last in the series. And here it is, a beautiful New Year's inspired design with fireworks in the bottom, and it says 2026 on the flowers along the top. And don't worry, this might be the last flower pot design, but it's definitely not the last free design that you'll get from me. I've got so much planned for next year, so stick around, subscribe to my channel to see everything that will be coming out very soon. But for now, here's how to download the free SVG for this New Year's Eve inspired flower pot design and how to make it. Let's get started. You can find the free files to make this project at craftwithsarah.com/free-SVGs, or click the link in the description of this video to go to the tutorial where you can download straight from that page. You'll need to register a free account on my website in order to download any of the designs. The download comes in a zip folder. Before you can get the files into your cutting machine software, you'll need to unzip that folder. Visit craftwithsarah.com/help for instructions on how to do that, as well as a wide range of other tutorials on how to use your Cricut, Silhouette or ScanNCut machine. Once you've downloaded and unzipped the folder, it's time to get the SVG into Cricut Design Space. Open up Design Space and start a new project by pressing New Project and then Blank Canvas. You can close out the window on the left by clicking the arrow about halfway down the page. Go into Upload and then Upload Image. You can then press Browse to find the file on your computer or drag and drop it in. Make sure you choose the unzipped version of the download folder, and within there look in 01 Cricut version. There's one file in here that starts SVG-01 in the file name. Click and drag that in and this is what it looks like. Press Continue. You don't need to change anything on this screen, just press Upload. The flower pot will then be inserted onto your project. Again, close out the window on the left by clicking the arrow. The design loads in at a nice size to cut, which is 5.8 inches wide and 6 inches tall, but you can make it larger or smaller if you wish. To resize, make sure the padlock icon between the width and the height boxes is closed. If yours is open, click it to close it. You can then change either the width or the height, press Enter on your keyboard, and the other measurement will change in proportion. For this design, it's nice to cut the grey layers from a silver and perhaps some of the other colours from glitter or metallic card too, to really embrace the firework vibes for New Year. If you're going to be putting this in a specific frame or onto a greetings card, you may wish to build up your project in Design Space before you cut it out to make sure everything is perfectly sized. I'm going to be cutting this twice, once for a shadow box and once for a greetings card. I'll show you both of my projects how they look. For instructions on how to build up your projects, head to craftwithsarah.com/help. Choose Cricut, Silhouette or ScanNCut from the list of machine options, and there are separate videos in there. This is what my shadow box looks like. My frame is 9 by 9 inches, so that's the size of my largest square. I've then got one in gold and then a lime green one here, but I'll be cutting that from pattern paper, so there's a little bit of extra visual interest behind my design. I've added myself a guide layer here by creating some text and then changing it to a guide in the operations dropdown, just to remind myself that that should be cut from pattern paper, not from lime green. Here's my greetings card. This will be a 5 by 7 inch card when it is cut, so my base rectangle here is 7 by 10. I've added a score line down the middle and attached that to the base rectangle. I found some star images under Images, and these are Cricut Access images. I placed them around the front of my card and then used the subtract feature to take them out of the card. That means I'll have all of these little bits cut out, and I can add a square of silver behind that to show through the gaps. I thought that was a nice way of emulating the night sky on the front of my card. When you're happy with how your project is looking in Design Space, it's time to get it cut out. Press Make over on the top right of the screen, and that will separate out all the colours for you. You can change the paper size in the drop down on the left, and you would need to do that for each colour, and then you can click and drag to move things about if you want to change the position or to use up less space on your cardstock. When you're happy with how it's all looking, press continue to connect to your machine and get everything cut from cardstock. If you're new to cutting card with your machine, again, head to craftwithsarah.com/help. There are videos in there on how to cut card on all of the individual types of Cricut machine, plus Silhouette and ScanNCut tutorials too. Here are all of the pieces of my New Year's flower pot cut out, and I've laid them all one on top of the other, following the assembly guide included in the download folder to check I'm happy with all the colours and that I haven't lost any of the little pieces along the way. I've used a sparkly silver instead of the grey, and I've got a gold instead of the dark yellow. I think I maybe should have tried to use some glittery colour for the blue and the purple middles of the flowers as well, but overall I'm happy with it and I'm not going to recut it, so I'm going to stick with this one. If you can hear any weird whistly noises in this video, I apologise. Where I film, my filming setup at home is right in front of where my chimney is, and the weather outside is currently blowing the most horrendous wind and it is whistling down the chimney, so if you hear any strange noises, that's what that is. Alright, let's get started with our design. We'll be putting all the pieces together with a combination of glue and foam squares. The glue I'm using is Barely Art Glue, but I also like Colourful. The reason I like these glues is they don't bend or wrinkle the card like some glues can do. And then to add some dimension, we'll be using foam squares. These are the ones I'm using. They're from Dot and Dab. These ones are 5x5mm and 2mm thick, but any will do. They can be thinner, they can be thicker. It is up to you. If yours are bigger though, you may need to cut them smaller with scissors to fit in some of the smaller gaps. As with all my layered designs, we're going to start at the bottom and work upwards. So we'll move these pieces apart, try and keep some of them together, seeing as we've already gone to the effort of putting them all in place. And don't lose any of the pieces. There are some small ones in this design. Here we go. And now we're left with the bottom one, which is the bright green, and then the dark green on top to do with foam squares. So I'll turn this one upside down and get the foam. As I said, this one does have some small bits in it, especially around the fireworks at the top. So you may need to cut your foam squares smaller. I will need to, when I get there, just work round and do the bigger areas first. And try and get a little bit of your foam in all of the sticky out pieces to make sure it will be stuck onto the layer underneath really securely. And try and make sure that none of your foam goes out over any of the edges or in any of the gaps, otherwise you'll be able to see it from the front, which we don't want. And then as well as going around the edge, you also want to fill in any big areas like the flower pot at the bottom with foam squares. That's to make sure it will all stay nice and level when it is stuck to the project. If there was nothing in any of this area, you might find that the cardstock naturally sort of bends downwards a little bit and doesn't end up looking flat, so you don't get as good a 3D effect. I'm working through all of these bits, but I'll need to cut some smaller for those firework bits. Okay, here we go, and then I think one in that circle. But I want to put one in these 4 little starry bits. It's nice and simple. Grab some scissors and then you should be able to just cut them in half. Maybe more if your foam squares are bigger, but half will be fine for mine. And then I can put that in all those little firework pieces. There. Now that I've got all my foam squares on, I can peel the tops off to reveal the stickiness underneath. And it is a little bit tricky if you've cut your pieces really small, so be patient with it and you'll get there with them. Bring your bottom piece back in, and this one's going to go on top. Line up the edges as neatly as you can and then gently drop the rest of it down without putting any pressure on it yet. That way, we're only dropping it on top, not sticking it. So if you weren't happy, you could pick it up and move it, and it hasn't actually stuck yet, but I am happy with that. So go ahead and push down. Only push down to get it really well stuck when you know you're not going to want to move it again. Next up, we've got the lightest green piece to glue on top. Go slowly in these top bits, because they are very thin. That's why I like the Barely Art glue, because it's got such a thin nozzle on it. You can get into thin areas like that just fine. Next is the fireworks piece to go at the top to glue on. You can either build up the flowers or the pot next. I'm going to do the flowers. So next we've got this pink bit to put on with foam squares. Once again, carefully line up these edges and then drop down. Then if you're happy, push to stick. Next up we'll do the purple, and this one we will also do with some foam squares. You could put on the middle of the pink flower at this point if you want, or you can do it how I'm doing it. That's the beauty of these designs, is you can do it exactly as you want to. You don't have to follow along exactly. However you do it will be beautiful. If you want to switch some bits out and glue some bits that I use foam for, or foam some bits I use glue for, that is completely up to you. Make it your own if you want, or follow along exactly. Get all these petals in the right place. There we go. And push down. Then next up is the yellow to glue on. And then the blue to do with foam squares. This blue flower is a little tricky to put on because it's not symmetrical on the petals, so it might be a little bit of turning it round and round and round until you get it to fit exactly. That seems to match pretty well, so I'm going to go with that. Alright, next up is the middle of the flowers. I'm going to put my foam squares directly on here. Foam squares for all of them. Then we've got the middles, the circles in the matching colours. So yellow, blue, purple. My purples I used are probably a little bit too close together, but I think it looks more different in real life than it does on the camera. And then finally pink. And then we've got the numbers to glue on top. Make sure you get them in the right order so it spells out the correct year. 2, then 0. These are a little small. Then the other 2. And the 6. Make sure you stick it the right way up and you don't accidentally make it a 9 instead. It'll work in a few years if you do that. You'll just have to keep it for a while. There we go, that's the flowers done. So next we can move on to the flower pot. We've got the solid layer of the rocket to do with foam squares. There, and then the detail layer to glue on. Perfect. Now we're going to build up the colours inside the firework, starting with your yellow or gold piece to glue on. Next up is your grey or silver. You can see how the different shapes, oops, we'll just bend that, petal, that wasn't very clever. You can see how the different shapes build up the colours in there. That's my silly mistake for not putting a foam square under that petal. And then next up is the blue. Almost there now, just the rim of the flower pot and then the tiny flowers and stars to go after that. So we've got the rim next to do with foam squares. There, and then foam squares for the bottoms of the flowers. These are quite small, so if you prefer you could glue them and it'll still look absolutely lovely. I think I'm going to have to glue the stars. I think they'll be too small even for my half-sized foam squares, but let's see. Oh no, that will fit. Okay, perfect. We will foam them then. Not very good at super fiddly bits. I think for this one I'll try putting that foam square directly on the flower pot, because these bits are very small. And then flower there, and the double flowers here and here. There we are. And then the tops of the flowers to glue on. It will only be the very middle of these silvery bits that we end up seeing. The rest will be covered by the colours. So I'm dabbing my glue around the petals, but leaving the middle bits without any glue, because that's the bit we'll see. See what I mean there? With that, you just see that middle bit of silver. Oops. The problem with gluing onto glitter is it takes a long time to dry, and I very often move it out of place. But there we go, that's all the pieces done. There's my lovely 2026 New Year's flower pot all finished. So this is my larger version of the design that I'm going to frame, but I've also made a smaller version to go on a greetings card instead, to show you that this design does cut nicely at a small size too. You can see the difference if I put them next to each other. I'm going to be putting it on a 5x7 inch card, so we'll see what that looks like in a moment. I changed up some of the colours on this one. I've done a purple flower pot instead of blue. And now for the final reveal, here we go. Here's my shadow box. Looking lovely. I've used a purple card for the background, and then I've got some glitter, the same glitter that's under here. And I had this lovely tie-dye effect pattern paper in my stash, which I thought fitted in with the colours lovely for this flower pot. So there we go, there's my framed design. And I've also got the greetings card to show you. For this one, I found some star images in Cricut Access, and I used the subtract feature in Design Space to cut them out of the front of the card, and then put some silver card behind that for a little bit of shine. I should have checked the stars a little bit more closely before I cut it out, because some of the circles you can see here, they were too teeny tiny to be cut out. But what I'm going to do for those is use some little silver gemstones and stick over the top to hide where it hasn't cut through properly. And that will also look nice to give it a little bit of depth on that background too. I couldn't do that for this video as I am recording this at home, as I said at the start, and my gemstones are at my studio, which is about a 10-minute drive away, and I am not going out in that awful weather unless I absolutely have to. So this can wait until I'm next at the studio to add the gemstones on there. But I wanted to show it to you anyway, just to see how the design does cut nicely at that small size to fit on a card. So there we go, shadow box and greetings card version. Which is your favourite? I hope that you enjoyed this video on how to make this 2026 New Year's Eve flower pot design with your Cricut machine. If you enjoyed it, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to my YouTube channel for loads more free SVGs, Cricut crafts and general crafting fun to come out in 2026. This is my last video for this year, so let me know in the comments, what was your favourite project this year? What kind of things do you want to see more of next year? And is there maybe anything you'd like to see a little bit less of? Please do let me know. I love getting your feedback and reading your comments. It's always so helpful for me for coming up with new ideas and for knowing exactly what it is that you want to see. Have a wonderful new year, and I will be back very, very soon with even more video content. But for now, thank you so much for watching. Bye!